Hey guys, I hope you're having a great Thursday. I'm excited to bring this quick video to you on the topic of fasting and what prayer and fasting is all about. Hopefully by this point you've heard, and I know a lot of you have been talking about it, that Saturday we're going to gather here corporately at the church together for a time of prayer as we look at all the things that are going to be coming up in the month of March. Our church is going to be doing a ton of things, and we want the gospel and the word of God and the power of the Holy Spirit to make a difference and an impact in all that we do. We're about kingdom building here. We're not about just doing things that we like to do. And so we're asking our church to gather together to pray about these things, to ask God to use the youth retreat, to use the Be Still conference, to use our community egg hunt, to use our Good Friday service, to use Easter Sunday. All of these things are happening in the month of March. We want to cry out to God and say, God, will you use these events to impact people's lives, to change the course of eternity, to see people put their faith in Jesus and to understand what it means to follow Jesus with all of their heart. This is some heavy things as we're talking about. So we approach heavy things, serious things with the power of prayer. So one of the things we called our church body to do is to consider being a part of a 24-hour prayer and fast. Well, what does that look like? Well, Jesus talked about fasting. The Jewish culture practiced fasting. We see the idea all throughout the Bible. Here's what Jesus had to say about it in Matthew chapter 6 during his Sermon on the Mount. When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others that they're fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. It's interesting as Jesus talked about the importance of fasting. He said, if you fast. He says, when you fast. So he's encouraging people to stop eating, to fast from food in a way to help focus and intensify their prayer. So when my body is hungry and craving that Chipotle bowl, or maybe it's that Chick-fil-A meal that I want to have, or I just want to get out and order a pizza from my favorite pizza joint, my body is hungry. It's telling me, go eat, get that food that you want. But my spirit within me is saying, I'm going to say no to my bodily craving. And as that hunger consumes my thoughts, I'm going to turn my thoughts to prayer and say, God, rather than eating 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a day, I'm going to stop. And that hunger is going to remind me that it is time to pray. It is time to go to God and talk to God about what's going on in my life, to take time to pray and to focus on Him, to pray about the things that are coming up. Remember I said that fasting is talked about a lot in the Bible. Let me read just a few verses to you here to help us understand how it was used. In Joel chapter 2, Old Testament prophet says, yet even now declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting, with weeping, and with mourning. Ezra 8:23 says, so we fasted and implored our God for this, and He listened to our entreaty. It's interesting. Fasting intensifies our focus on prayer. The desire for food turns our focus. We say, we're going to pray even harder now because we're hungry. We're asking God to do something big in our lives. Fasting is talked about in the book of Acts. In Acts 13:2, the early church is spending time worshiping and fasting. Listen to what it says. While they were worshiping the Lord and fasting, the Holy Spirit said, set apart for me Barnabas and Saul for the work which I have called them. Again, fasting and prayer focused their intensity on what God was doing, and God used that time to give vision and direction to what the church was supposed to do next. Again, in Acts chapter 14, verse 23, it says, and when they had appointed elders for them in every church, with prayer and fasting, they committed them to the Lord in whom they had believed. Many times in Scripture, we're called to fast, to focus our hearts on prayer, to let the hunger drive us to pray harder, to be more focused on prayer, and to say, God, we're setting aside our human desire and craving for food, and we're saying no to that so that we can focus even more on prayer. Listen, if you're able to say no to your hunger for that Chick-fil-A and Chipotle bowl that I talked about earlier, when you're able to say no to your body's cravings, as basic as food is, what happens? What kind of willpower do you then have when you feel the anger growing inside of you? And you're like, I'm feeling angry right now, but God says I shouldn't be, so I need to say no to the anger and the actions it's driving me to, or maybe break it down as simple as lust. Like a lot of people say, I can't control my cravings, my sexual cravings or my lust. That's impossible, right? It's like breathing. I have to breathe oxygen. But you know what? If we're able to say no to food, you'll be able to say no to that lustful thought and the actions that your body usually has fallen into patterns and addictions over. Fasting gives you spiritual power to break those desires and cravings. And that's why in the early church, the Christians would typically fast on Wednesdays and Fridays. Frequently, they would do this every week if they were a Christian. They needed the power, the spiritual formation of fasting to allow them to be able to have victory and to experience freedom from that. All right, you've listened this far into the video. That means you're interested and you want to know more about fasting. Check in the description below this video. There's 3 articles for you to read. I encourage you to read all of them. It's talking about fasting for beginners and what beginners should know if you've never done fasting before. Maybe you have fasted previously, but it's good to just refresh and say, what is behind this? Why am I doing this? What's this talking about? It's going to talk about how to start a fast, how to start small, how to plan what you'll do instead of eating, how to consider how your fast will affect others. Listen, your kids are probably still going to have to eat, and if you're choosing to fast, you're going to have to choose to feed your kids but not eat yourself. Like, how does this impact others? Try different kinds of fasting, as it talks about. If you're fasting without praying, listen, you're just being miserable and hungry. Praying has to be the foundation to make the choice to fast. Praying has to be the foundation that you're looking at. One of the articles talks about how to have a 4-course prayer. Listen, during fasting, you might be wishing for a 4-course meal, but a 4-course prayer: adoration, confession, thanksgiving, supplications. How do I do that? What does that mean? That's one of those articles that you can read in the description as well. So I want to thank you for watching the video. I want to thank you for being willing to say, I'm serious about this. And I want to equip you with some articles to read and to help answer some questions. Again, going back to what Jesus says, like when you're fasting, don't talk about it to everybody. Don't make your face look miserable and cranky and you walk around all day stomping your feet with your arms crossed saying, I'm fasting and I'm angry about it. That's not what God wants us to be about. Instead, it's about setting your heart and your mind, saying, God, I'm going to do this for you, and I'm going to wash my face. I'm going to look happy. I'm going to act like, even though on the inside I feel like my stomach's eating itself, I'm using that to drive my prayer. I'm using that to push me forward. And you know what? We have a lot to pray about as a church. So as you fast Friday from 10 a.m., you'll come to church here Saturday at 9 a.m. We're going to pray from 9 to about 10:30, 11 o'clock. And we're going to do corporate prayer. We're going to pray for the needs of our church. We're going to pray for the things that are coming up as we're doing a busy month of March. And we're just saying, God, use Thrive Church to grow your kingdom. Use our church. Give me the ability to talk to people that are spiritually searching. And even as we're praying for the church, God might show you some things in your own heart, things that He wants to communicate to you and draw you closer to in your walk with Him. So many good things happen in fasting, and this is why we're saying to the church, as we're growing, we want to make sure we're focusing and doing the things God calls us to do. Prayer and fasting leads the way. Thank you for watching the video. If you got an email or a question, send me an email. Love to talk more about it. Again, we're looking forward to this. All your questions, read the articles. You'll find answers probably to some of the things you're wondering. And if it's not there, like I said, shoot me an email, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Thanks so much, Thrive Church. I can't wait to see how we look back and we say, remember that day that we went into prayer and fasting, and then we got to see God respond and move in powerful ways. God gets the glory for everything we do here at Thrive Church.